Have you ever wondered more about the mystery of Jabba the Hutt? Why does he do what he does? Why is he the way he is? Well, this canceled Star Wars project might have had the answers. And what does Sabine's Force powers mean for Star Wars? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
There are so many canceled Star Wars projects now.
It's just sad.
It feels like everyone at some point has gotten involved with and then stepped away from Star Wars at one point or the other.
Stepped away from or got pushed away from.
Yeah. Forcefully, sometimes by their own volition, sometimes by the volition of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And we have another one of those, and it comes in at a very interesting time. We finally have the writer's strike over. We're still waiting on the Screen Actors Guild and all of that fun stuff to get passed through. There's some more likelihood of that happening soon. And there's just a variety of weirdness going on in the Star Wars universe. We have Ahsoka, which is ending like a TV series rather than like a movie, where it is setting up something to continue the story after it launches. And some people are annoyed by that. Some people are quite enthused by it. I would say I'm quite happy with it. I think it's time for us to not only have Star Wars shows that begin and then end within the same run. I think it's time for us to set things up. But I think the fear and the annoyance is around a topic that we've talked about a lot, and it's this idea of Lucasfilm not very often continuing something. Oftentimes, like this movie that we're going to be talking about, they just decide not to. Or if you look at Solo, they set up something incredible with Solo and the whole Darth Maul reveal and everything like that. But alas, they did not do anything with it.
No. Yeah, a lot of these things just end, even though they're all set up to continue. So it's yeah, I can understand why people are quite nervous with the ending of Ahsoka.
Who knows? Are they never going to do Ahsoka season 2? I
would imagine though we're probably in a good space to
as long as Filoni's involved.
Yeah, as long as Dave Filoni is involved, we're probably in a good space to expect another season.
Yes. Or movie has been theorized, or maybe it picks up with Mando season 4. There's a variety of theories here. But what about this Star Wars project that has been canceled? Well, we got news from The Hollywood Reporter that Guillermo del Toro has confirmed that he was working on a now scrapped Star Wars movie about Jabba the Hutt.
That would have been so freaking good.
So if you don't know, Guillermo del Toro, he did The Labyrinth as well as the stop motion animation Pinocchio and a variety of other projects. He's like a filmmaker's filmmaker. He's more impassioned around the art of filmmaking than he is anything else. Like, he just really loves telling interesting stories using the medium of film and the variety of mediums of film, because he does stop motion, he does live action, he does a variety of things. He writes, he does comic books. He just loves telling stories, and he likes getting into more of the weird and wacky side of things.
Yeah. And the weird and wacky is what you would need for a Jabba the Hutt story. Oh my gosh. I mean, you'd be dealing with Jabba the Hutt's family, I'm sure. So there'd be multiple of these slug-like creatures on the screen. Possibly even
his planet. Which I don't know if his planet's canon anymore, but in Legends it was this basically like, what if the underground of Coruscant covered an entire planet? That's where the Hutts are from.
Yeah. Oh man, I just imagine the puppetry going into this thing,
because he does love puppets.
He loves himself some good puppets,
and
he does
practical
them
effects.
Well. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even be there for the story necessarily. The story would be awesome because I feel like it. Yeah, cool, crime lord, heck yeah. But just the effects. Oh man.
Yeah, what is it? A feast for the eyes. And this all would have been alongside David S. Goyer, who has done a ton of things. He has a writing credit on The Dark Knight, as well as Batman Begins, I believe. He has worked on the Blade trilogy, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's done a lot of stuff in the Hollywood realm, filmmaking realm. And this is what both of them had to say around the project. This is reporting over a number of years, but we just recently had more confirmation on exactly what it would have been. David S. Goyer says there was just a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on at Lucasfilm at the time, but it's a cool script. And then Del Toro tweeted, True, can't say much. Maybe 2 letters, J and BB. Is that 3 letters? And then more recently, more confirmation during a recent interview with Collider. Quote, we had the rise and fall of Jabba the Hutt, so I was super happy. We were doing a lot of stuff, and then it's not my property, it's not my money, and then it's one of those 30 screenplays that goes away. Sometimes I'm bitter, sometimes I'm not. I always turn to my team and say, good practice, guys, good practice. We designed a great world. We designed great stuff. We learned.
That makes it sound like they were pretty well into at least planning it out.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sad about this.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed a Jabba story, but now I need a Jabba story.
Yes.
Like what? Why?
Especially when it's Guillermo del Toro that's working on it.
Yeah, give me weird and wacky Guillermo del Toro. Jabba, yes.
Because I feel like Jabba has been, as a character, written off more as a funny haha character of like, oh, he can't really do anything, really. When the whole crime syndicate around the Hutts is very fascinating. And it's something that I wish they would have touched more on in Book of Boba Fett, that they just didn't.
It's true. The many webs and fingers that Jabba has in this world of Star Wars, like it expands through the galaxy heavily. And I don't know, I feel like we could have seen so much more of the repercussions with Boba
He
Fett.
controlled the spice trade in Tatooine. That's why he is on Tatooine, because it's a perfect position for spice trade. It's a perfect position for smuggling, and it's a good outpost because it's far away from the galaxy center, but is very close to a hyperspace lane. So that's why he's there.
The Hutts in general were just powerful, though. I mean,
across the whole galaxy.
Yeah, they got away with a lot of stuff. Jabba was not the least of them, that's for sure, but there were many Hutts, and there was a lot going on.
Yes. There was at one time a Hutt Jedi in Legends. He ultimately fell to the dark side.
Who's surprised?
And then there's, I don't know the story of it, but I remember seeing art from some book or comic around a completely jacked Hutt.
I need to see this.
Yes.
It sounds like a fan fiction.
Yes. But could you imagine going back in time to see the rise of Jabba the Hutt and see, and I don't think you tell it from the perspective of Jabba, you tell it from the perspective of someone close to Jabba. You see the rise and fall of him throughout maybe this one character's life as he works very closely with Jabba or for Jabba. I think that could be very interesting. Yeah. Maybe told from the perspective of a bounty hunter or smuggler or mercenary that works very closely at different points of Jabba's life. I think that could have been fascinating.
That could have been interesting. I could have seen it from like the advisor.
Bib Fortuna?
Yeah.
But he's so sleazy though.
But that's fun. That's why you were here. I don't know, man. And maybe it was his predecessor, because this is a fairly wide span of time that we're talking about.
He's pretty old.
Yeah. It would have been interesting. And at least it would have explained him becoming more sleazy, you know, like there would have been that growth of
I just feel you need a stronger character than Bib Fortuna who can be swayed with a wave of the hands by a Jedi.
Yeah, well.
That's just my opinion. Because his rise would have preceded the Clone Wars. It would have preceded the prequels because we see Jabba on Tatooine at that time, in that time period. So it would be much further back than that. And at that time, it would have been pretty close to like the height of the Jedi.
Yeah. So it wouldn't have necessarily been Bib then. It could have been someone totally else.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying with like the idea around like a mercenary or smuggler or someone close but not directly tied to him, you know? Someone who could step aside that you could follow on some other journey and then come back for Jabba in some form or fashion.
If you're going to make it about Jabba, make it about Jabba.
Yeah.
That's my take. Could
you... I don't know if I could stand a whole movie with Jabba the Hutt. Like, who wants to do that? That's why I think it would be more interesting to tell it from this third-party perspective, because you don't want to get into the mind of Jabba. That's just disgusting. But someone outside of that, I think, could have been very interesting.
For sure.
It's a very interesting time in Star Wars. We have, like I said in the beginning of the episode, there's a lot of things going on at the same time. We're learning about a lot more of the Star Wars projects that are coming up and then announces canceled, writers changing, directors changing, actors changing, projects scrapped that could have been further along like we think this Guillermo del Toro script would have been. It seems like, yeah, like you said, it seems like it was basically done. Like they were just ready to start shooting.
Yeah. It sounded like it was well underway. For it to be practice?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You're not just like, oh, I have a theory or an idea. No, it's like everyone was getting involved in this.
Yeah. And I would say, too, that Star Wars, Lucasfilm, everyone thinks that they're heavily involved in the projects. But from everything that I've heard, people really close to the source say mostly they're left to create their own things. And once it's done, they come back and they submit the script. Like we talked about Taika Waititi's project. It is still happening. He has, I think, already submitted another draft of his story. That's how this goes. They step aside, they write drafts, and then they send it in for approval and notes. And then they go back to the drawing board, or they say, hey, this is a cool script, but let's set it in this time frame. Or this is a cool idea. Let's go into this direction more because it's going to take place and part over here. So while I think a lot of people think that Lucasfilm, Disney have like such a grasp on everything, not necessarily on the projects for movies. And maybe that's changing now that we're having such a heavily reliant structure around Star Wars movies coming forward, and the TV shows getting a little bit more deprioritized. Maybe that's something that's changing, but we'll see how that goes. And in terms of how Star Wars is changing, though, we have something that we theorized a bunch. I was totally against, and you were against, but said it would have happened. And that is around Sabine being force sensitive.
Oh, yeah.
And my thing was, she's not force sensitive until there is a force usage in some way. She moved something with her mind, and that was her lightsaber. And then once it was the lightsaber, it became Ezra. And then that was kind of like the extent of it. And I think she just lost her, I don't know,
her trust,
confidence.
In herself?
Yeah. Because she wasn't able, she tried to use the force to pick up her helmet and is not very in tune with it. So I think I appreciate how Sabine was able to use the force to pick up the lightsaber. I thought that was interesting. Where it just checked out for me was when she force pushed Ezra across the gap. I think that was too much of a stretch. Yeah. I agree with many people saying that they've done a really good job in stepping up the level of like time it took her to get there, because she didn't use the force at all until this moment.
It's true.
But I think going from, yes, the whole season she hasn't used the Force, and then in the last episode she used the Force, the lightsaber. Sweet, that sounds great, that she can fine-tune her abilities afterwards. And there's the whole line of like, oh, she's been practicing. It's like, no, she hasn't. No. We've been with her this whole time. There's never been a gap of time where she could have practiced.
Yeah. Or if there was, she was pacing and she was not meditating and focusing. Like it was, she was very much agitated the entire time that she was captive.
So if it stopped with the lightsaber, I think that would have been a great arc and would have set up something really nicely for the future. And then would have let Ahsoka and Sabine build out deeper, more stronger abilities. But here we are. She does have this more powerful fact about her, which I don't think is a problem. I just think how it came about was a problem. It's going to change a lot with Star Wars, I feel.
How so?
We have another Force user who is training as a Jedi. We have Ahsoka training her after failing or being fearful of failing. And we have Sabine, who still is not as confident in her abilities as you would have expected probably after this amount of time. Yeah. And there's just a lot of tension in between the Master and the Apprentice here. But you also have, in the real Star Wars galaxy, you have Luke Skywalker and Ezra that are walking around. And you have Luke Skywalker setting up the Jedi Academy.
It's true.
And you have the New Republic that is trying to distance itself from the past of basically the Empire.
Corruption.
And all of these pieces are moving around. And now you have Sabine that's getting thrown into the match, which is another pawn in this bigger chess game that is Star Wars in this time period of, we don't want to have a war. We know there is going to be a war, and there's people wanting there to be a war.
Sabine is a really interesting piece in this. I think it's going to be a pretty wobbly set in the next I think it's going to be another season
of
Ahsoka. I really hope that they play with this idea of Sabine not necessarily not trusting herself, but being extremely like...
Well, she's been told this whole time that she's not good enough.
Yeah. So we're going to be seeing her wrestle with this like fluctuation of like not good enough and then good enough. And when she's good enough, she's like, great. But then she's totally off. Like it's on, and it's like a light switch. When it's on. But then when it's off, it's totally off. Like there's no coming back. Like there's just like it's gone. So it's going to be really interesting if they keep playing with that, and I kind of hope that they do to maybe make it make more sense. I think
they have to make it. They need to do that.
Yeah. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be more than what it was. It needs to be not as subtle. Just bring it out. Just talk about it. And
show the work.
Yeah, show it. Yeah.
Because I think we're in a very interesting time period with Star Wars. There's a lot of politics that are getting put onto Star Wars, whether or not they're there. And one of these is definitely the idea of a female character and a female lead that is powerful or comes into power. And while Ezra was able to use the Force very rapidly in his training, he was unwieldy with it. And I think that you can boil down, there's some fans that are looking at Sabine's quick growth into the Force as like, oh, they're super powerful, it's Rey again. And then there's others that are like, I want a powerful Force wielder in the Force, but I want something more. I don't want it to just be there. I want to see the growth of it.
Right. You want the reward of actually being there side by side with this character growing.
Because that's so much more interesting than watching someone who's already good.
Yeah. You can get behind someone who you've been in the mud with all the way up to when they're like a master.
Like when she got the lightsaber, it's like, sweet.
Yeah.
And also kind of annoying because I really wanted Sabine to be just a Mandalorian. I think it would have been so fascinating to see just a Mandalorian, someone who can wield a lightsaber, who's getting trained to wield the lightsaber, and maybe cultivating the Force in terms of like not picking up objects and throwing them and like using that side of the Force, but how can she use the Force to basically become more tuned to her environment? I think that was what I was wanting more of in this.
Yeah. It would have been really neat to see, even if she was using the Force in like a more standard traditional way, but to see her use it in combat rather than just
like Baylan.
Yeah, rather than just like, oh, I can move things. Like, no, why not move yourself? Why not use yourself in your environment? And
instead of just taking the hits on your armor.
Seriously, come on. No, it's Beskar, but like it doesn't need. You shouldn't rely on that to do the work for you. Like, anyway, yeah. Why? My question is why? Why choose to push and pull things? I mean, I feel like that is like the basics.
That's when people are. That's the struggle I have with Sabine using the Force. Is I think it's the easy way out. I think it's the same reason I struggle with Ezra getting a lightsaber again. It's like, come on. Seriously, he was so awesome just relying on the Force. And I feel like on the inverse of that, I would have liked to see Sabine rely on herself, but utilizing the Force as an enhancement rather than the whole like, oh, I'm a Jedi because I can pull things with my brain. Woo!
Because I can pass this pear across the table. Yeah, no, we don't need that.
I think this is the perfect opportunity to do something really unique with Star Wars, and they were leading us right there to the door, and they're like, psych, she uses the Force now.
Yeah. Considering they already, not necessarily teased, but they kind of started to lead us to believe that she's going to use this Jedi training and Force, I would assume, in a different way. I hope that they continue to lead us down that path to have her use it uniquely.
Yeah.
That maybe this was just a like...
The whole story around Sabine and Ahsoka is that Sabine is different from Ahsoka. That's why she was failing so much in what we theorize happened when they first tried training her. And it was indicative when they were in the ship getting attacked by Baylan and Morgan Elsbeth and the crew. And they weren't doing well until Ahsoka let Sabine lead the way, knowing her strengths as a fighter, as a Mandalorian. Weapons are part of her religion.
Yeah.
And that just kind of took a backseat in the last episode, I feel.
Yep.
It was more of like, oh, this is what Ahsoka wants me to do versus this is what I feel like I should be doing.
Yeah. I definitely think that they kind of glossed over that relationship. I think it's because they're back together again. And oh my gosh, you lived. Yay. There's like this happy, sweet, like, oh, we're so buddy. I really hope that they get back to
as soon as
butting
season
heads
2 comes out,
yeah.
I want them to be like, no, I hate you.
Yep.
I'm leaving.
Yep.
There's nowhere to go. You're on this planet with us.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I think I will say and appreciate this one moment that I think they did a good job of understanding the strengths and weaknesses of Sabine. And it was during the fight where Ahsoka's like, no, use your blasters. When they're fighting the zombies, and she was like, don't try to be something you're not. Use your blasters. This is what you need to do. This is the moment that we need right here.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. I think that was I hope to see more of that.
Yeah, I think there's got to be more character development for Sabine, because I mean, she's already gone through a lot, but there's still so much more that I think we're going to see from her. I really hope to see her artistic side come back.
Yes.
Because we just haven't seen any of that. Like, where is this rebellious, like, teenage artist? I need more of that. I need to see that in how she uses the Force. What does it look like
when you're a teenage rebellious artist? How do you do that now? Like, I would love to see that, like, growth of, like, what does it look like to be this kind of artist now? I think that's a good point. And
how has she matured from that? Because obviously she's not the teenager that she was.
Exactly.
It's been some time. But what is it now? Like, where is she? Once an artist, always an artist.
Yeah.
Spoken from experience. So I want to see more of that. And I think that they can have a creative way to show it through what she's learning with Ahsoka.
Yeah. Maybe she like carves I don't know, a bust out of like the mountains with a lightsaber or something. Who knows? But yeah, I totally agree on that. I think seeing more of Sabine embrace what makes Sabine unique, I think we need to see more of. And I think they need to do it because I can so easily see them failing at that, because it's super easy to put that across in an animated kids show. It's a lot harder to put it across from an adult artist and make that seem legitimate. So I think that's a fun challenge that I hope that they embrace, because that is a huge part of what makes Sabine so fascinating as a character.
Yeah.
What does it look like from someone who is a part of this huge tradition that is taking that tradition and spinning it on its head a little bit, painting her armor, doing these things that some in her family and past would see as sacrilege.
Or just not the norm. I really hope that they play with this message, because I think it's something that it's coming more into as a thing, like to be yourself sort of thing. It's always been a message, but like I think it can be really said well with Sabine about like how she can make it her own and just be something completely unique, because that's always been Sabine. Sabine's always been kind of a black sheep, and I think it needs to show out some more.
Definitely. But let us know your thoughts on the whole Guillermo del Toro Jabba the Hutt movie, as well as your thoughts on Sabine being a Force wielder. Let us know in the comments below, or contact at uplinkpodcast.com. As always, you can listen to the podcast wherever you find podcasts: Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the places. You can check us out there. You can check out the video version of the podcast, as well as all kinds of videos that we release on. Episodes come out Tuesdays, videos come out Thursdays and Saturdays. So make sure you check those out. As always, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.